workers and you be on a level.
Listen, I'm never giving up.
Stand your ground, don't be too comfortable or too settled.
Listen, I'm never giving up.
When you hit rock bottom, it's only one way to go.
Listen, I'm never giving up.
Everybody got problems, how you handle them, no.
Listen.
Hey, I'm John.
I'm Jonathan.
And welcome to the Formula.
What up? Welcome to the Formula, guys. We are very excited about our very, very first episode that we're actually recording with our own equipment. You know?
Yeah.
Pretty excited about that,
This
John?
is pretty lit.
Pretty dope, right? You know, like,
we did this out of necessity because of COVID-19.
Yeah, man, this COVID-19 has really changed.
Just threw everything
things.
off, yeah.
Changed everything.
Yeah.
Changed life.
Yeah.
You know,
It delayed our drop. It was supposed to drop a long time ago.
So yeah, like guys, just that you know, we've been really, really working hard on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Our producer Nicole has been just working hard on getting us out, and so we could drop our episodes. And then, like the week before we dropped our first episode, COVID hits.
Right.
You know, we snuck into the office space to record, and we actually did a couple episodes about the COVID and couldn't drop them because just didn't work out. So right now we have our own equipment and we're very excited about it, and we're very excited about the topic that we're going to be discussing today. And so our producer Nicole, she's phenomenal, and she had a great opportunity. She had a great idea for us to watch the movie The Hate U Give. And so that lines up very much with the climate we're in today.
Mm-hmm.
We've socially, as everyone knows, it's haywire right now. Hardly anyone's working, so there's a lot of people that can be out on the streets to protest the injustices of people of color, and I think that this movie like really exemplifies what's going on right now today. Like,
It's a good depiction of what's going on
yeah.
in the country right now.
Yeah, it's really, really kind of on point, and it really touched me a lot, man. So, what you thought about the movie?
I thought it was very educational, especially for people who are not African American, not African, not Black American, because a lot of times people really don't understand the effect that this has on us, because it's not just about George Floyd. It's about how that, I call it an assassination, how that assassination really affected his family and then the community in general. So a lot of people really don't connect the dots, you know?
Right. And
that movie kind of showed you like the aftermath, you know, what happens outside, because we just hear the names. We hear the names and we kind of keep it moving. But that movie kind of shows you what happens outside of that.
Yep. What happens outside of that? What happens around the family? What happens to the families that those families touch and the lives that they're in? It also shows where white America, really what you see on Facebook and read on Facebook, the way that white America is responding to this and reacting actually to this is exactly how they're reacting in this movie, but in person to these people.
One of the best things that I thought about this movie was that it showed so many different perspectives of the same problem. So it showed what this girl went through with the quote unquote code switching, because she went to a private school, but she lived in a more quote unquote urban area, in a neighborhood, where she sees people who look like her every day to a school where she does not. It showed the fear that we have towards having interactions with the police and how it affects us and how it in turn affects our children, because look at what her dad was teaching them every day, drilling into them, because he was so afraid, what he was drilling into his children every day, of how to react when they had to deal with police. Because when it comes to people of color, it could be life or death. It showed the police officer's perspective, because the girl's uncle was a policeman, and he got to speak on how scary it can be to be a police officer, and the fact that someone could pull out a weapon on you, and that fear that they have, which in turn makes some of them react a certain kind of way. And it showed the perspective of business owners, of people just being upset and tired of having to deal with this same problem again and again and again. And, the frustration of trying to go the legal route to get things handled, and it then in turn not being handled as it should be. And the outrage that we now feel compounded on top of what we already felt. So that was why I felt like this movie was such a good, because it just, from so many angles, and it was so well done that, like, every time I watch it, I know me and you went to see it in the theater when it came out, John, but every time I watch it, I cry, like, every single time, because the pain is a part of our actual experience. I have had negative and positive interactions with police officers, and I know other people who have also.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, if you are not a person of color, you don't have that same fear that we have as soon as you see a police officer. Mm-hmm. That video is going viral with the little boy who the police was going down the block. He was busy playing basketball in his yard, and when he heard the police car, he hid behind the truck until the police car passed. He's not doing anything but being in his yard playing. Like, it just goes to show you the kind of fear that is pushed into us consistently, and we are right to be afraid, and we are right to be angry, because why should it be dangerous for us to be black?
Right. And I've never had a positive experience with a police officer.
Really?
So, when people say, oh, there's good cops out there, I don't know of any. I don't know of any. And the dude that pulls me over, how am I supposed to know that's a good cop or a bad cop? I have to live my life assuming that all cops are bad cops.
I mean, we shouldn't have to. That's a part of the point. We shouldn't have to be afraid or wonder if a cop is a good cop or a bad cop. There's a certain standard, that they're supposed to be living up to, that they aren't all living up to, and there happens to be retaliation towards police officers who do stand up to do the right thing, which then in turn scares them. I mean, that law that's going on, why can't I remember her name? There was a police officer, a black woman, who stopped another officer from choking, having a person in a chokehold, that they were arresting. She stopped him, and it was everywhere. It was all over the news and everything. Pictures of her, all of that, of her yelling at this other police officer, because he was choking this man. And instead of her, being commended, for, checking her fellow officer, because maybe he was afraid, maybe he's still a human being. Maybe in the heat of the moment, he was getting beside himself, but you're trained to deal with this kind of thing. And there's a line that you're not supposed to cross, and nobody is supposed to be getting killed. And the fact that she stopped him, which is what she was supposed to do, and then in turn was fired without her pension, when she was at 19 years, getting to make
Yep.
20 years is ridiculous.
And that's part of the issue is that you have they built a culture where you almost can't be a good cop. Like even if you wanted to be,
Right.
you can't be a good cop because things like that will happen.
I'm not going to totally agree with that. I'm going to play devil's advocate to a point, like I said, because I know some great police officers, you know, people that we grew up with, people that we've gone to school with. I have had personally some positive interactions with police officers. So therefore I can feel, you know, that way, but I feel like the negative is way outweighing
It's
the
way
positive.
stronger, yeah.
But
It's
I
the
don't
culture.
want to, with one sweeping gesture, completely disregard all of the positive aspects that I have seen and dealt with personally. There's a campaign called Guns Up, Life Down. They have a whole, you know, program. I know somebody, Jimbo, who works with them, and they, you know, are all about changing things within our community and changing, you know, our interaction, you know, with police officers and encouraging people who have been victims of gun violence, and their families, you know, have to not retaliate, and just they're doing so many positive things. And one of the events that they had that I went to, I took my little cousin with me. He was 5 at the time. Was they had something called a truth booth, which they had this little booth set up outside, and you could go inside and talk about how you felt the community's interaction with the police could be better. Things that the police could do better, things that people could do better, whichever way you felt, and go inside of there in privacy and speak your mind. And they had, you know, food out for everybody, and a bunch of police officers came, you know, from the neighborhood that worked in that neighborhood. And they sat and they met everybody and they listened to what people had to say inside of this booth, you know, and talked about some of the things that people suggested that they could implement. You know, just people taking those kind of steps and actually going forward with them. You know, it's one thing for people to take a knee, and I'm not disregarding that because it's symbolic in a very positive way, but actually making the changes, actually taking the steps to make the changes is important. Changing legislation is important, you know, but also making people aware. Why is anybody fighting against the fact that all human beings deserve equal rights?
Right. And we're supposed to be given due process. But if you take my life away, there's no due process for me. So I don't think the police should be out here enacting like the death penalty. Their job is to apprehend, arrest, and then we let the justice system take over after that. So
it's like, even just talking about it right now, I feel like I want to cry because it's 2020 and we're still getting lynched.
we're still dealing with this.
We're still getting
dealing with this.
lynched. We're still getting hung from trees with no repercussions for the people who are doing it.
Right.
And we're still out here protesting,
Like-
which we've been doing for the longest.
And
So-
we getting run over during peaceful protests.
They
and getting
shot tear gas. They
Right.
shot rubber bullets. They ran people over with the car. They're beating people with batons. They're arresting journalists. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Their response to police brutality, to a protest about police brutality, was more police brutality, which didn't make no sense to me. It made no sense to me. So, and then people wonder why we feel the way we feel. This is our experience. This is our life. Just yesterday, a police car pulled up next to me, and my heart going 1,000 miles. You know, my heart is racing because I'm like, And I'm trying to play it cool, like, and I'm trying not to look at him, trying not to make eye contact. I'm trying to play it cool, but it's just an inherited fear that that we have, that most of us have, and it's based on experience. It's based on life experience. We're not talking out of our behind.
One of the
Like,
words
we're not
that you
making
said
this up.
It's
You
so
know what I mean?
important. It's inherited. It's passed down. Some of the things that we all as a people do are because we have been groomed to do some of these things. We've been trained into doing
Right, and that's why in the movie,
and it's passed down.
and that's why in the movie, the dad was talking to his kids. Okay, what do you do when a police officer approaches you? You put your hands. You put your hands here. This is how you look. This is how you speak. This is how you talk. This is how you act. You know what I mean? So, and he was doing that in the movie. They were young. They were they weren't even driving yet, and he had to have that talk with them.
The fact that someone who does a mass school shooting, who's not a person of color, can walk protected by a ring of officers and be practically given a slap on the wrist, and then in turn you have a person of color who's selling loose cigarettes, gets choked to death in front of people,
Right.
and no one even thinks to stop it. That another man who, regardless of why people are talking about if he was high or not or whatever, I have no idea.
He was drunk. I mean,
No.
just like every other.
But he was not
Adult.
resisting.
like
he
every
was-
other.
He
adult.
was not resisting.
You talking about the Wendy's drive-thru?
No, I'm talking about George Floyd.
Oh, right,
now,
right,
once
right,
you
right.
have him in
Okay.
cuffs and he's on the ground,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
weird.
like-
yeah.
he's not resisting.
Right.
So this man that is not fighting, going wherever you need to take him, you felt the need to
Oh, they took him back out of the police car.
kneel on his neck until he died and
See,
murder him
I couldn't
in
watch
front
it.
of everybody.
So I don't.
felt like I
couldn't
had to
it.
watch it.
I couldn't watch it. So you're saying they
put him in the police
put
car.
him in the police car,
Mhm.
and
Took
then they
him
took
right
him
back
out.
And then did what they had to do to him. Did what they did to him. They didn't have to.
So he was already in cuffs.
Yo,
He was
when
already in
I
cuffs.
heard that man call for his mother,
Yeah.
I started sobbing.
You know, think about how lifeless that those four guys had to be to hear
See,
someone calling for their mom, telling you that you can't breathe. Bro, you gotta.
See, I don't understand
It's
why
insane.
they do that though. I don't understand why they put him in the car and then took him back out.
Right.
Right, but that is the point that everybody's making. Why did they kill him? Why? I watched a video. I don't know if either of you saw it, but there was a video. There was a young lady who was dressed like in more masculine like kind of clothes. The police came. They were protesting. The police came over and was starting to arrest them. The young lady was not resisting. One of the police officers grabbed her breast. She shook him off because he grabbed her breast, not brushed it by accident. Her hands are already behind her back and he grabbed her. Right? And then they all turned around and started beating her with batons. She wasn't running away. She was just trying to stop herself from being molested. And they beat her because of that. She was standing still, standing in one place, just getting hit by batons. She was already cuffed. Like, it blows my mind that anyone would not feel like this is a just cause. That we are only saying we want to be treated like human beings because we are human beings.
We're not asking for much. We're really not.
we're
We're
not.
just asking for a decency. Just
Yeah,
treat
right,
us
right.
with respect.
Just like humans, man.
Just treat us like humans.
Like that's some of the problems that I have when I hear some of my white friends. Well, I won't call them friends. Some of my white associates, when they say that they can't understand how we feel to be a black person. I get it. You're not black. You don't understand how to be. But you know how I feel to be a human. You know how you want
Right.
to be treated as a human. Like, we're all humans. Like, dude, I understand you don't walk in the shoes that we walk every day, but you're still human.
And we've been saying this for generation
Yes.
after generation after generation after generation.
Like, we're
we've been saying the same
literally
thing. Like
one
literally.
step away from being hosed and dog sat on us
Right.
again.
Right. Right. Like this is not nothing new. So you know what's going on, and you know this has been going on. So this is not nothing new. You don't have to walk half a mile in our shoes to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
And what hurts too, man, is like it's something that Star said in the movie too. It's like no matter when she was doing the speech, you know what I mean? She was like, you know, no matter what we say, they won't hear us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can tell them that the sky's blue. They're not going to hear us. They don't care.
mhm.
It's because they don't care, man.
Mhm.
The people that don't want to hear us, that's all we're asking to be heard. That, like, when kids is begging to be heard, and then they're not heard, the white, black, Hispanic, it don't matter. They act out. You feel what I'm saying? What else are you gonna do? What do we have to do to get your attention? You feel what I'm saying?
I don't.
And I feel like this is beyond that because
Yes.
because how we're fighting for our survival. We're
Literally.
fighting for our survival. We're not. This is beyond, you know, being. This is beyond, you know, us asking for something. You know, we're fighting to live.
Right.
We're being lynched.
This
we're
is
being
not. We're
killed
not. This
on
is not.
camera.
We're not trying to fight to vote. Like this is
Right,
not.
right,
it's not
right.
one of those things. We're literally. Our lives are at risk
On the
Right.
line.
every day.
Every day.
Every single day. And it don't matter if we're outside, out and about. Breonna Taylor was assassinated in her
house.
home.
Right.
In her home. We're not even safe in our home.
Right.
So this could hit us anywhere, anytime. And it seems like every police department around the country, it's all the same thing. That's what it seems like. It's all the same culture. And that culture is very toxic. And that's why I say it's hard for even for good cops, you know.
My whole thing is that police and the corruption of the police force are part of the problem, but that is not the whole problem. And I just don't want people to get so caught up in that they miss the bigger picture, because we need laws to be changed. You know what I'm saying? We need things to happen politically. We need things to happen in legislation. Laws need to get changed all the way around. Policies need to get changed all the way around. These things need to change, not just, well, because the people's instance disband the police force, but it's not just that. It's much bigger than that. This country was built on, you know, our oppression, on keeping us down, on putting us down and keeping us down. It was built on top of that. All of these laws, all of these things, we consistently have been fighting to change the laws that were made in order to keep us feeling inferior, in
So I
order to
didn't-
keep us feeling like we're the minority.
So I didn't get the defund the police deal at first until I started reading up on it. And the defund the police is what they said is they giving them $75 billion or something like that, something crazy.
I
right?
saw, I think I was on Twitter. No, I was on YouTube, and I saw somebody posted something where they listed the budget for police departments,
Right.
and then they listed next to it
Right. Yeah.
military budgets
Right.
for other countries.
Yeah.
We have police departments that have a bigger budget than some countries' military.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So when you say defund the police, a lot of people say, "Oh, that's crazy. That's radical. You're out of your mind." No, we're not. This and this is not nothing new. Like the whole defund the police, it's been going on.
And I'm not against that at all. All I'm saying is that I don't want people to be watching this hand and not seeing what this hand is doing on the other side.
Right,
You know,
because it's
like-
all
But that's
systemic.
always- that's
It's all
always-
systemic.
That's always going to happen, though. You know what I mean?
You know,
That's-
like just.
But it's all systemic, and it's every system.
Mhm. That's what I'm
It's
saying.
every single system.
That's what
So
I'm saying. I
our
don't want people to
economic
forget it
system,
and then
our
focus-
judicial system, it's
focus-
every system that's
all of that energy and
Yeah.
only have the blinders on towards the whole problem is the police. No, that's
Well,
not the whole problem.
that-
That's a part of it.
So that's the start of what I was saying.
Mhm.
So the defund the police, it goes deeper than the material, the military did.
so there's when you say defund the police,
Right.
there's kind of like different definitions to it.
Right.
So let's say the police budget is 500 million.
right,
That's kind of lowballing it,
right,
but
right,
let's say police budget is 500 million. You could defund that to 250 million,
right.
and then use the other 250 million for other services.
Yeah, and that's,
Or you could defund it to $0, get rid of the police altogether, which I support, and then come up with a new way to provide that service. Come up with another way, a more innovative way to provide policing for our communities. So I support abolish the police and replace the police. I don't know how you feel about that.
I don't know about that.
I
don't know.
Because
I don't know. Now,
I ain't trying to go back to Wild West, bro.
nah, it's
Where
not
the
going.
emphasis-
No, we're going to replace the police with
Right.
something
With what?
else. That I don't know. We haven't come up. I haven't come up with anything yet.
Right,
But
right.
we, as a community, we can figure that out.
Yeah, but I feel like it needs to be figured out before the steps get taken.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
no,
saying?
definitely, yeah. We can't.
what the
'Cause-
defunding, like that's what I was getting to.
Right, go ahead. My bad.
They was saying that other places where we need the money is like in the neighborhoods where, you know, I mean, these kids don't have, you know, the equal opportunity to play sports, and kids don't have equal opportunity to education.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? All the money is going to the white schools. You know, and I don't understand why white people don't understand that, and they don't see it. It's in their face. And I feel like I don't know how you guys feel about God, but I feel like God is continuously escalating each situation, because he's like, okay, look at this. This is what's happening. And white people are like, that's not happening. All right, watch this.
Mhm.
This is what's happening.
Mhm.
You see that man get choked? You seen him.
Mhm.
They're like, no. He was selling loose cigarettes. They gave him an excuse. All right, watch this. This kid got shot. Philando Castilla. He was a law-abiding citizen. They still like, I don't care. It's the cops, right? It took this, right, for this guy to get put in a car, taken out, and then killed.
Mhm.
And they had to sit. They had to sit and watch him for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
And they still
And they had to see that. But now that's why it's coming to a head. You know what I mean? But yeah, put those funds in places like, because that's what I was going at. So I don't understand why they don't see that. If you look at West Charlotte, we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. We look at West Charlotte High School. It's historic high school, right? But they can't get the things, the new buildings, the new things, the electronics, all that stuff that's needed, right? But there's a new high school that get built in a white neighborhood. You feel what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like Huff got built not just a few years ago. You know what I mean? That took most of North Meck school kids away from them. But it's a very nice school.
Mhm.
North Meck is in North Mecklenburg, part of Charlotte. Huff High School is like kind of, well, they're considered Huntersville, but like Huff is like right in Huntersville as well. But it's in the really nice area where there's 300, 400 million, $500,000 million homes. You know what I'm saying? So they get the turf fields. You
Mhm.
feel what I'm saying? And there's another crazy story, right? You ever heard of Waddell High School in Charlotte, North Carolina?
Nah.
So there's a school, Waddell High School, used to be. So Waddell High School was a brand new high school back in 2000. I think they started because I graduated in 2001. So one of my friends graduated in like 04, 05, right? So Waddell High School was a brand new school, right? There's a school down the street or something in that area that was like a language school that most of the white people was at. Waddell High School, black people, right?
Okay.
Brand new school. They made a law or did it whatever they had to do, what they do. They took that school away from those kids, dispersed them into West Charlotte and West Mac and Hardin, and
Wait. So they built a new school
right
and they closed.
within like 5.
So they built this quote unquote white school, and then they closed the quote unquote black school.
No, they took the black school.
They took it.
They took over the black school.
Okay.
They shut down the black school, which was very new.
Mm-hmm.
The white school, I think the white school was a little older, but they shut down this black school, which was fairly new. Made them go to the other black schools in the area, and then the white people is in their school now. The white students are in the black high school now.
Wow.
Because it went from the I think it's like a language arts school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They was in an old building down the street, so they did what they had to do to get those kids
Mm-hmm.
out there.
Mm-hmm. And that's what Nikki was talking about. It's all there's more to it.
Yeah.
There's more to it than what meets the eye.
Yeah,
That's the things we need.
So
We need those things, like
right.
yeah.
keep those good schools.
So
in
that's
the
why
neighborhood.
I think
I just-
defund the police and use that money for education. Use that money for other social services.
I'm
use
not
that money
against.
for,
I'm
you
not
know,
against
other
these
things.
different things. All I'm saying is that I just want people to be aware. Like, while this is going on, it's still a pandemic. While we are fighting against the police system, we need to also be changing things in the school system. We need to also be changing laws all over. You know, we need to be changing laws in the individual states, and we need to be changing laws as a country. You know, that I want people to not just focus on this one small part of the problem and then realize, okay, you changed this one thing, but then the other things that really need changing.
There's
are
a
not
whole
being
laundry
changed.
list.
Yeah.
Whole
You
laundry
know?
list of things that need to be changed.
That's a part of why I do childcare, because every kid deserves to be loved. Every kid deserves to be able to learn for the sake of learning, you know, equally.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not getting that. We're not getting that as a people.
Mhm.
And it's crazy to me.
Right.
Yeah, the movie was it brought up a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Not because it's not invoking emotions, but it's showing us what real life is about. Like giving some people that feel like that this stuff isn't happening a little glance at what our life is really about. Like what happens in our lives, and you know, and like in the movie it shows like, you know, why he was, you know, the character that passed away got killed. Like, why was he in that situation? Because his family was his mom was taken away through drugs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had to basically raise himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he had to take care of his kid, his brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's just, but through it all, man, it just shows us how strong we are. You know what I mean?
Boy,
We don't go out killing people because our life was bad. You know what I mean? Like, we don't go out and, like, shooting up a church or shooting up the school or anything because our life is bad.
Mm-hmm.
We got to fight through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they just fight through it. You know, and that's what we do, man. It's good. The movie was really good. I'm really glad that I got a chance to watch it.
Yeah, we saw it in the theater, and there was a girl there that she was bawling.
Mm-hmm.
Like she just lost it. She just lost it.
I was so emotional, like when we were in the car, like talking about it. John just let me talk because I was turned up. Like I was so emotional, like in the car, like, and I can't believe and that part, with the little boy, and this is what, I was so emotional, and every time that I watch the movie, it brings tears to my eyes because of the fact that these kids have to deal with this. We're supposed to be making the world better for them. And look at what we are making them have to see. Look at what we still having to teach them. Look at what we having to make them go through. Why should in 2020, like back in the day, right, we thought in the year 2000 cars is gonna be flying. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be like the Jetsons. Right. That in 2020 we still having the same fight. Same thing.
It's cool, I woke up really early this morning to watch it, like 6 o'clock. My kids usually wake up 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning. So when I was watching it, both my kids, my son, 6-year-old, and my daughter, 4-year-old, they both came in and they had their tablets, and they're watching the movie with me. And my daughter, she goes off on her tablet. She's not watching it. But my son, he's engaged.
At 6 years old.
At 6 years old, he's engaged, and he asks questions like, why would they do that, Daddy? Why would they do that? Like, son,
and he understood, comprehended everything
absolutely
that was going on.
And the scene that they went into when Star went into the courthouse, the jury was out there, right? I said, Kingston, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to believe what she's saying? And he's like, no. I said, why did you say that? He said, because it's mostly white people.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's
crazy. What I mean? He gets it.
He gets it.
You know what I mean? He gets it.
At a young age. Yep. I wasn't getting it at that age. I sure wasn't getting it.
It's heartbreaking because childhood is so short. It's like you have such a short amount of time before you have to start thinking about being responsible, about the next steps that you have to take for your future, starting to work, paying taxes, paying bills. Childhood is so short and they don't even get a chance to be innocent. They have to be worrying about if their parent is going to come home at night, from leaving to go to the store, right. That they have to be out here protesting. Like, why should they have to do that still now? Why?
And that was the thing about the movies is it's almost, we reacted the way we reacted to it because it hit home, because we lived that. Yeah. We lived that. We related to it so, like, it was so exactly on point. And it was almost like an actual reenactment of real life.
Of things that we have all experienced.
Of things we've all experienced, even though it was a movie.
The party, being pulled over afterwards, being scared to death of what is going to happen when you got pulled over, of protesting, of being afraid of what's going to happen when you protest, of having to think of those things, of what you're going to tell, of your child, of it is crazy. It's crazy.
So we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Please hit us up on social media at The Formula Production on Twitter and Instagram, right? Yeah. I am also on Twitter and on Instagram at Speechless417.
And I am on Instagram at Bootleach and Twitter at Bootleach.
I am on Instagram at Sweet Nikki New.
And you're not on Twitter.
I am not on Twitter. Other than The Formula.
So we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you. Till next time.
It's the formula.
Don't ever let them bring you down, cause then you be on their level.
Listen, I'm never giving up.
Stand your ground, don't be too comfortable or too settled.
Listen, I'm never giving up.
When you hit rock bottom, it's only one way to go.
Listen, I'm never giving up.
Everybody got problems, how you handle them, no.
Listen, listen, listen.